everybody. Welcome back. This is Conversations with Kibby, and I am joined today by a roundabout relative and administrator and teacher of 32 years, 17 of those in an administrative setting. And what's unique about this one is that Mrs. Godfrey is specializing in elementary ed, which is night and day from the kids that I see on a regular basis. So without any further ado, please welcome Miss Tina Godfrey. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is fun.
Awesome. We were kicking around some ideas before we hit record, and I can't wait to see what we can get into. A couple of the things that you can look forward to are differences between urban and rural schools and differences between high school and kindergartners. This ought to be a lot of fun. Tina, you are familiar with the format, so I'll let you jump in first. Tell me something you'll never forget about your teaching or administrative experience.
So, first of all, I don't have the greatest of memories. And so I have two stories that stick out that I just haven't forgotten for years. It's a good thing that we have Facebook. In the past, I have gone on to Facebook and I've said, okay, school story, and I've just jotted things down. And it was a good thing that I've had that because as I was going back and reviewing some things, just to thinking about things that I could share with you, I was like, oh my gosh, I'd forgotten that had happened. And I always try to put, obviously you don't put any names with anything when you put on Facebook, but I was trying to remember who it was and some of the things I can't. But the one story that I do remember is in the morning at one of my schools that I was at, we would walk in the mornings before school. It's a good time for us to talk. It's good to get the blood pumping, ready for the day. And I was walking next to a kiddo, and he was always kind of a jovial kind of guy, always had a good story. And we were just talking, and he said, hey, he said, I'm moving. And I said, you're moving? And I knew we had just talked about where he lived, like within the last couple of weeks. So I was like, okay. And I said, where are you moving to? And he goes, I'm moving to a hotel. And I said, okay. And the wheels are turning because I'm thinking, did they lose their house? Did mom or dad, lose their job? And he's like, yeah. He goes, it's going to be awesome. And I said, okay. I said, why are you excited about moving to a hotel? And he paused and he looked at me and he goes, free Wi-Fi, duh. And I'm like, okay. Those are those things that you just cannot make up, like free Wi-Fi benefit.
Their perspective is a little bit different than ours, right?
A little bit.
I am from a very populated area. It's about 155,000 people, 7 area high schools. When I moved out to central Nebraska, a little bit different, but still came out and taught at a Class A, very large, very urban school. I am now at a very small rural school, and I can tell you that there are quite a few differences between those, that some of them I definitely did not foresee coming. One example is I can remember when I turned 16, I could not wait to get my license, right? The day I turned 16 in Indiana anyway, you can't even test for your license until you turn 16. Soon as school was over, mom had to get out of work early. She had to come get me so I could go get my test, so I could get my license, so I could get on the road, right? Out here, I pull up and I have freshmen that I have in class pull up next to me in the parking lot in the morning. These are 13, 14-year-old kids. And I'm like, do your parents know you have their car? And they're like, yeah, I got my license. What do you mean you have your license? How does it work out here? So I had to learn quickly about the whole rule thing. And if you live this far within a school district, and it blew my mind to see freshmen driving.
Yeah, it is a little different, especially when you pull up and you go to the town grocery store and they're pulling up next to you and you're like, wait a second, you're not old enough to drive, but yet they're out driving the streets. So yes. And the first time that I ever showed up in the springtime, they have the drive your tractor to school day. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
pulled up into the parking lot and there's all these big pieces of machinery lined up. And I was like, what's going on? Oh, it's FFA, or, drive your tractor to school. So those are the things that you just don't get when you work or teach in a bigger district that the rural district does have to offer.
That is for sure. Any strange playground sightings for you?
So my very first year, I taught in a country school. Actually, my very first year, 2 years of teaching, I taught in a country school, and it was a K-8 school with roughly 100, 110 students, and there were just some. That's really small compared to what you and I are used to now. But very first day of school, I go out and it's recess, and there were pigs on the playground, just out there, just rooting around, and the kids were just oblivious to it, but they're all farm kids. And me, I was like, what's going on? And I called my mom that day and I'm like, there were pigs on the playground. And of course, she laughed, I laughed, but I wasn't expecting that one at all.
I have seen a difference in maturity level of rural kids versus urban kids. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I guess I'm thinking it's a lot to do with the self maintenance, the you live on a farm and the whole family lives close to each other, so there are certain rules and expectations that you have to do, where it is that some kids that live in the city don't have any of those responsibilities and to have a phone in their hand the whole time and all that. But it's really wild. I can talk to and have conversations with freshmen in a rural school that I don't think we could. I think we'd go right over their head in some of the urban schools I've taught in. Have you seen any evidence of that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's interesting. I've learned long ago not to ask a student a question that can be answered with yes or no. And that's a great tip for parents, but it also for students. So I'll ask them things like, hey, what'd you do last night? And you always have the, oh, play video games, or, but then there are some that, oh, we went out and we rode four-wheelers, or we went down and we were fishing in the pond by our house, or I had chores to do and this is what I did. We have kids that are into horses, and they do their work and then they work on their 4-H projects and all the things. And so it's kind of fun because you can definitely tell a lot about the parenting style by what the kids are doing before or after school. The parents that are like okay with their kids being in front of the TV or playing the video games all the time, the parents who are still, even though it's a rural community, still working on the travel sports and getting them involved with the sports track, or those that are just like, yep, you're a farmer and an outdoor kid from the get-go, and they are very that's just what they tend to gravitate to. So we get some pretty good stories about things that they do on their off time.
I grew up in a very inner city, very urban school, and I can tell you that I didn't have any experience before I moved out here with FFA.
Mhm.
Well, moving to a little rural school, FFA is humongous, right? I have fallen into the MC for most of the assemblies and everything, so it's not uncommon that I'll get somebody will have emailed me an itinerary for an assembly that we're going to have next period, and I print it off and haven't looked at it and have to go in live and start talking. Well, most of the time that's fine because I have announced almost every sport you can think of that there would be an announcer for. I can tell you I've never done anything with FFA, so there's all these categories and all these things that they're doing, and I have no idea how to read any of that stuff. But think about the fact that, and I don't know exactly how many kids are at the school, but 27 in the graduating class. I can tell you that we had kids lined all the way across the gym floor that were going to FFA. It was more than a third of the school that were gone, right? And then we start talking about that they made it for whatever category it is that they will look at an animal and tell you if that animal is up to par, I guess is what it is. And then I had to have them asked. I'm asking all kind. I'm full of questions, right? I'm okay. So who teaches you how to judge these? Well, they kind of give us guidelines. Okay. Well, this is your opinion on if this is a good looking cow or if this is a good looking horse or again, yeah. What makes you an authority? I'm not. Why would they want you to judge? I'm so made of questions right now.
Uh-huh.
But based, if I understand correctly, they go do an assessment, and then people who do the assessments assess their assessment, and then tell them if they did a good job on their assessment of this animal. Right?
Yeah.
We didn't have that in the hood.
Right. Right. There are so many aspects of that because I'm learning as well. So one of the things, like I had no idea, flower or floral arrangements, like that's a thing, that's a section of the FFA. And so when you start at first, you think automatically, you think farming. It's all about farming. It's all about animals and growing crops, but it's really so much more to that. And as I'm learning more about FFA and what their projects are, then it's like, oh my gosh, the total experience and the leadership experiences that these kids get to experience is really cool. Because I think, ooh, I'd want to hire somebody someday who has some FFA experience and has really gotten into their chapter.
They get the opportunity to travel. They can take leadership roles. It's really really neat, and it's a sect of society that I was completely unaware with.
Yep. And those city kids have no idea because they automatically just think FFA and that means boom, farming. And that's not necessarily true.
I had in one of the schools in Indiana. Last day of school is always weird because people are cleaning out their lockers and it's just a little chaotic. It's intended to be a little bit freer, but you never really know what you're going to get. I've got a kid that is being really, really coy about opening his locker. It's a high school kid, and everybody else there's papers all over the floor, there's stuff all over the place, and there's one locker that's closed.
Uh-huh.
Something's not right. So I
Uh-huh.
go find this kid, and he's over giggling, and he's got a couple other boys around him and everything. I couldn't get him to open his locker, so I have his combination. I go open his locker, and hanging from his locker is a backpack with a live snake coming out of it. He decided that he wanted to do his own show and tell, and then he realized, I guess, at some point this is probably not a good idea. But then goes and tells all his buddies, which brings it to my attention. So I got to go address it, and then I go find a snake in my locker, and Daddy does not do snakes.
Right, right. Well, I had a situation once that was somewhat similar. So, of course, I'm elementary and I have three people, three teachers, staff members that are at my office door and they're like, and they're holding this backpack and the looks on their faces. And I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking, I'm going to that whole safety thing. I'm going, we have a weapon in the backpack. There's, something that shouldn't be in there. Like maybe there's drugs, I'm thinking gun, knife, whatever. Cause the looks on their faces, they're just like, we got a problem. And I'm like, okay. And I said to them, what's in there? And you can just tell they're just, and they said just come look at it, just come look. And I'm like, okay. So I get up and I walk around and they're doing one of these and they're kind of unzipping it, and I look and they're laying in the bottom of this backpack is a dead squirrel. And I'm just like, oh my God, whose is this? And why is it at school? So I talked to this kid. Well, it was January in Nebraska and, it's cold out. And I said, honey, why did you bring this squirrel in your backpack? And he goes, well, before school today, I went out to my tree house and I saw this squirrel just laying there and he looked really cold. So I thought if I brought him to school, he could warm up in my locker. Oh. So at that point in time, you kind of just go, okay. And it's like, okay, now we have this dead squirrel in the backpack. Like, what do we do with it? Right? What do we
There
do
is
with it?
not anything in the manual about.
Oh my God. Yeah, that brings me. I hadn't remembered this one until I was just telling that story. But at another school I was at, I heard a bunch of ah, ah, And I'm just like, I go out in the hallway and they're some one of the staff members is holding a backpack and it is just swarmed with cockroaches. And I'm like, get it outside. So we open the door, we chuck it, and we realize that in the side pockets where the water bottles go are apples and other fruit that has been partially eaten. And you open it up then, and it's just got other food in there. And they had decided to bring it to school with all of the extra critters on it. That backpack went straight to the garbage. That was
Goodness.
disgusting. So you talked about the last day of school, the things on the last day of school. Well, when I taught kindergarten, one of the things that we did is that we had all of the kids bring a squirt bottle, and we went out as kind of it was our version of a water gun fight. Without having to do the water balloons and all of that. So we went out to the playground. And if you're an adult, the level of a 5-year old is right at your midsection. And so I had on a light tan, like a jumper. It was a one piece dress. And the kids obviously had been doing their water gun fight, and I was soaked in my midsection. And we were walking down the hallway, and there were some parents that were there visiting. And I kind of, I have people walking behind me, and I kind of hear, psh, 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 and I don't think about it. I dismiss the kids. Hey, have a great summer. And I go into the bathroom, and I realize that my light tan dress is see through now when it's wet, and I am wearing flowered underwear. So not only did all of the kids and probably the parents taking the pictures, it's archived. My flowered underwear were definitely visible.
Star of the show.
Wow. And what are you going to do about it? Because it's done and over with.
Right. The height thing reminds me of a teacher friend of both of ours that had the task of having both of my kids. She ended up saying that she really loved having both of my kids in class, but my youngest is really a people pleaser. We go in for parent teacher conferences, and he is so excited to introduce us to his favorite teacher. And he's standing next to her, and he's trying to introduce her, and he's while he's looking at us, he patting her. But because she is a shorter woman and how her build is, he is right on her boob, just over and over and over. This is Mrs. This is Mrs. And I'm just horrified. I'm looking at my wife, and my wife is like, she understands what's going on. I go over and grab his hand, and I pull it. I'm like, come here, buddy. And no, no, no. This is it goes right back to it. And I'm looking at the teacher like, I'm so sorry. She said, it happens all the time. Little kids, they touch. It's what it is.
When you teach 5-year-olds, you get touched a lot, especially in that middle area, and you get tapped a lot. Mom, mom, or you'll hear, especially on a Monday, you'll hear grandma, because maybe they've been with grandma and grandpa for the weekend. You just have to answer to it, and you just get touched. You have to wipe boogers. You get sneezed on, you get coughed on, and a lot of times you're still wiping faces and noses, and you just get touched everywhere. That's just part of being a kindergarten teacher. Yeah, I always think about the grade level to teach, and if I'd go back to the classroom now, kindergarten, I don't think I would do it again. I don't think I have the energy for it. I love to go to visit, and I'll sub in the kindergarten classroom, but then I'm like, whew, I'm not my grade level anymore. Middle school, those fifth and sixth graders, I just sit and I look at them like, where is your brain? Did you just say that? Did you just do that? And then, yeah. And so my sweet spot is like that second, third, fourth grade. If I had to go back to the classroom, those would be the grade levels that I would want to go to. They still love school. They still like you as an adult. They're not getting that snippy attitude yet. And that's just a fun grade because they want to learn and they don't have that middle school mentality.
Tina, this has been a blast. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and give us some of your anecdotes, some of your stories. I knew that it was going to be electric. You are a blast to have a conversation with, and with all of your experience in education, I knew you were going to deliver. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me and good luck with your podcast. This has been fun.
Hey, for all the rest of you teachers out there, take a lesson from us. Write this stuff down. Make sure that you're at least keeping a Google Doc or posting something so it'll come back up on your memories or something. But so much of what we go through is unbelievable, it is indescribable that you'll forget what class it was or what student it was or what year it was or whatever. Make sure you're writing this stuff down. Let's all combine and see if we can't write the greatest book ever told.
Oh man, I know that there's so many people out there with so many stories. It would truly be the best. It would be the best seller of all time.
Have a great day. Thanks again.
Thank you. You too.